Welcome back to this talk to Al Jazeera with Sheikh Harith al Dhari. He's Secretary General of the Association of Muslim Scholars in Iraq. Good to have you with us. Has the possibility of civil war been averted or simply delayed until perhaps the Americans leave?
انتهى وإلى الأبد إن شاء الله.
It has ended and will be so forever, because the Iraqis have become aware that the occupation did not happen for their sake, to free them or to make them happier, but it was to invade Iraq, and it brought with it its own people and gave them power over the Iraqis. But it failed in controlling them, and therefore all the Iraqi people are against them, and it's up to the coming US administration, whether Republican or Democrat, to reassess the failed US policy if they want to be a future ally to Iraq and to reduce Iraqi animosity.
What's the alternative then to civil war? Should people be participating more in the political process, particularly the upcoming local elections?
العملية السياسية لا يشارك فيها العراقيون كلهم.
Not all Iraqis participate in the political process. Those who oppose the occupation do not participate in the political process, because it is one of the worst things that the occupation did to Iraq and was built on sectarianism, giving overwhelming control to two sects or two groups of people and distanced the majority of the Iraqi people.
If you say that, effectively that will take out the Sunnis from the political equation.
We do not oppose the occupation in order to be part of a political process, not now nor in the future. There are some Sunnis who do participate, and there are some Shias who do not. Anyway, most of the Iraqi people refuse the political process and the current leaders of the political process, because they don't represent the Iraqi people. Instead, they represent their own benefits and the benefits of the other powers they are linked to, first the occupation and then Iran. Therefore, the leaders who rule Iraq today under the occupation do not have the support of most of the Iraqi people. They are just people who rule through their own parties. I want to add something here. Shias do not rule Iraq today, in the same way that in the past Sunnis didn't rule Iraq. In the past, Iraq was led by one person and his will alone. Today, Iraq is ruled by a number of people linked to different parties, Sunni, Shia, Kurds and others. They do not rule in the name of Sunnis, Shias or Kurds, but they rule in the name of their parties, their benefits and external associations.
What do you say to people about participating in the upcoming local elections?
This is entirely up to them.
So what does that mean? I mean, what's the position of the AMS?
The position of the Association of Muslim Scholars from the beginning is not related to the political process, and these elections are part of this process which allowed the division of Iraq through the federal system. This political process which distanced many components from the political decision and from actual participation. These are failed policies, and they're the worst thing that the American administration came with, a failed solution. And this is what supported the opposition and the resistance. It is what caused the US project in Iraq to fail. They relied on people interested in their own benefits, people who lied and had other external associations which they put before the benefits of Iraq and even their American allies.
So it sounds to me like you're saying to Iraqis that really they shouldn't bother to participate in local elections if the political process is such a failure.
You can understand what you wish. We believe that the elections are a constitutional right to all the Iraqi people, and therefore we do not want to deny them this right. So whoever wishes to participate will participate, and whoever doesn't want to, then that is up to them. This is what the democracy they came to us with dictates, if we want to practice it properly.
Speaking of elections, do you think the US elections will make a difference to Iraq?
I think the US elections and whoever wins, whether Republican or Democrat, must change things. Because he will inherit a heavy task, and he will see that the US administration did not leave him something positive to build upon. It has been a destructive operation for Iraq and for the United States. And the results of this is what's happened to the US economy. The massive expenses they had in Iraq exceed $700 billion. They increased attention towards Iraq without actually solving the problem, distracted them from what was happening internally, and therefore allowed what's happened to happen. Therefore, I say that whoever comes to the White House, whether a Republican or a Democrat, must change things. But the coming days will reveal to what extent that will be.
You're opposed to the US presence in Iraq, so is the Sadrist movement. Can you see an alliance occurring between these two movements?
That's not possible right now because they're participating in the government. However, if they leave the government now or in the future, then perhaps we will meet them because they are our fellow countrymen. We meet all Iraqis who want the best for Iraq.
Have the Shia militias been defeated that were killing Sunnis?
Some of the militias were defeated and others are still there today, pursuing their activities through the security apparatus. The Ministry of Defense apparatus is still completely made up of militias, from the Badr militias to the Supreme Council and Ad-Dawa party militias. So whoever says that militias have disappeared is not being accurate. Because what is happening in Iraq is that, yes, the Sadrist party militias have been defeated at the hands of the two allied parties, but they are now the ones who are in charge and have put their militias in the interior and defense ministries. Therefore, the militias of these two parties and the Kurdish parties exist, but within the state. They continue their assassination operations and more.
If that's the case, the possibility of civil war is still present, particularly once the US forces leave then?
Not at all. If the Americans leave Iraq, the true people of Iraq will come out and take charge over their own matters. And they will be united and form all sects, Sunnis and Shias. They will come out of the cities, villages and the countryside and expel those that came with this occupation.
Some would say the idea that Iraqis will all come out, unite after the American forces leave, and as you put it, kick out those who came with the occupation forces, that's too much of an optimistic picture. Doesn't there need to be a really more solid, concerted plan of agreement between the different sections in Iraq to guarantee Iraq's future?
There is an understanding between all political forces of all sects and tribes in Iraq that as soon as the occupation ends, there will be forgiveness. And we heard from Iraqi reports that our Shia brothers have started to visit the Sunnis and the Sunnis are visiting the Shias, and that they regret what they did and they weep over what's happened between them. They are even taking each other to their homes. This is the nature of the Iraqi people. One minute they fall out and the next they forgive, no matter what the injuries were or the problems between them.
The leader of the Sadrist movement was saying that if Sunni scholars condemned louder the killings of Shias, Shia scholars would be more vocal in condemning the killings of Sunnis. Have Sunni scholars been not vocal enough in this regard?
No, from the beginning they were up to the responsibility. And their position was clear. But the brothers of the Sadrist movement and other movements who do not want an Iraqi national project accuse us of such things, even though our position has always been recorded. We condemned what happened to the Shias and the Sunnis equally, and condemned what happened to our non-Muslim brothers, the Sabi'a and the Yazidis. And on several occasions we condemned what happened to our Christian brothers as well.
Who represents a greater danger to Iraq's sovereignty today? The United States or Iran?
The Americans.
Some would say American influence is decreasing, while Iranian influence is increasing in Iraq today.
Whoever was able to stand up to the US occupation and the US influence is prepared to stand against any interference from neighboring states or anyone else. The strength of the Iraqi people enables them to overcome any danger which threatens Iraq. Iraq has a long history in this respect, which is known to the Iranians. Through its modern history also from the 1980s, they know who the Iraqis are, their steadfastness and their love for their country.
But the Iranian influence is based upon deep-rooted cultural and religious ties to sections of the Iraqi community. Surely you can't compare that to the American presence in Iraq.
لا أبدا قل هذا النفوذ.
No, this influence has decreased. Most of the Shias today reject the Iranian presence and are harmed by it, because the Iranian intelligence is today living in corruption in the south of Iraq. They've killed many tribal leaders and many active Iraqi national figures who were working in the field defending Iraq.
But who will fill the void if the US is pushed out of Iraq? Won't it be Iran?
The Iraqi people will fill the void and no one else. The Iranian project will end when the occupation does, because the Iranian project relies on the same people and parties as the US.
Should Sunni groups perhaps be negotiating more with the Americans rather than fighting them, just to counterbalance that Iranian influence?
This is up to them, but I don't advise it, because negotiations and an agreement already took place, but the Americans deceived and abandoned those who had negotiated with them after they had helped them.
Sheikh Harith al Dhari, Secretary General of the Association of Muslim Scholars in Iraq, thanks for talking to Al Jazeera.